New Ryzen X3D CPUs are here. New Radeon RX 9000 series GPUs are coming, and so is FSR 4 upscaling. Welcome back to PC Builder, I'm Jason. AMD shared details of their CES keynote ahead of the announcement, so we're going to cover the details, and I'll give you my thoughts on where things stand. As always, everything I'm about to show you, including performance estimates, comes directly from AMD, so it's all first-party data. Take it with a huge grain of salt, and of course there's going to be third-party benchmarks when all these products launch. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. Starting off with new graphics cards. And this is going to be quick because AMD provided very few details. In fact, they called this a preview of RDNA 4 rather than an announcement. AMD said there's going to be another announcement closer to the launch date of RDNA 4 graphics cards with more detail. For now, all they're saying is that the RDNA 4 architecture will have next generation accelerators for AI, ray tracing, and the display engine. AMD did confirm two specific GPUs in the Radeon RX 9070 XT and RX 9070, along with a future RX 9060 series. The RX 9070 XT and RX 9070 are going to be available Q1 2025, and AMD offered no pricing information before the announcement. No date was also given for the future 9060 series GPUs. In terms of performance, AMD simply offered a slide explaining their new branding, which they said is meant to be a better match for each GPU's direct performance competition. They showed the RX 9070 series between just below an RTX 4070 Super up to the RTX 4070 Ti for comparison with NVIDIA GPUs, and between a 7900 XT and 7800 XT for AMD's previous generation. I guess if we take the halfway point of the 9070 box as the 9070 XT, we can guesstimate the performance will be between a 4070 Super and RTX 4070 Ti or 4070 Ti Super on the NVIDIA side, and 7900 GRE and 7900 XT on the AMD Radeon side. But whether this is in rasterization only, ray tracing, or a mix just really isn't clear. And I'll note this chart, it just doesn't seem like it translates directly into performance, as it lists the RTX 4060 Ti as being faster than the 7700 XT, when the reality is the 7700 XT is significantly faster than the 4060 Ti. Maybe they meant to put the 4070 non-super there, or maybe the box for the 4060 Ti, it's just in the wrong place, it's too high. And if this does include a mix of ray tracing, I would expect the 4070 Ti Super to be up higher than the 7900 XT, so I wouldn't try to draw too many conclusions from this particular chart. For the 9060 series, they compared it to just above an RTX 4060 to the top of the RTX 4060 Ti box, or versus the previous generation Radeon GPUs between an RX 7600 XT and 7800 XT. Since they're calling it the 9060 series, we can perhaps infer that there will be an XT and a non-XT model. Of course, we can only determine the value of mid-range GPUs based on their price and performance, so unless AMD makes a last-second change to this information on stage, we just really don't know either of those things right now. I'll go over where I think these GPUs need to be priced later in the video. AMD also teased FSR 4 in a single slide featuring Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Now, in a departure from its open source software approach from previous generations of FSR, it does appear that FSR 4 will be a proprietary hardware solution similar to DLSS using hardware acceleration, in particular AI upscaling. Now, in a tiny little note at the bottom of the slide, AMD says that the FSR 4 upgrade feature only available on AMD Radeon RX 9070 series graphics for supported games, with AMD FSR 3.1 already integrated. So you'll likely have to have an RX 9070 graphics card to use it. No word yet on whether it's going to even work with RX 9060 series graphics, let alone last generation RX 7000 series GPUs. Now, in fairness, this is the same thing that NVIDIA does with its new generation graphics cards, where they lock new features behind their latest gen, and that's the reason that NVIDIA frame generation, for instance, does not work on RTX 3000 series GPUs, but you can use AMD's FSR to get frame gen on NVIDIA's RTX 3000 series. AMD does say that this was specifically developed for RDNA 4, and it's a substantial uplift over the previous generation of FSR. Now, they didn't give any launch date for FSR 4, but seeing as you need an RX 9070 series GPU, I'm guessing the earliest that we're going to see this is the first quarter of 2025. AMD also announced two new X3D CPUs in the Ryzen 9 9950 X3D and the Ryzen 9 9900 X3D. Like the Ryzen 7 9800 X3D, these will use the next generation of of V-cache, which is now underneath the CPU cores. This allows for better thermal performance and, as a result, higher clock speeds. The Ryzen 9950 X3D will feature a max boost of up to 5.7 GHz, similar to the 7950 X3D, but will run at a TDP of 170 watts versus the 120 watt TDP of the 7950 X3D. The new CPUs will also seemingly stick to only one of the two CCDs having V-cache, and the V-cache amounts are the same from the previous generation. AMD claims a gaming performance uplift of 8% for the Ryzen 9950 X3D versus the 7950 X3D, and that's similar to the claim of the 9800 X3D versus the 7800 X3D. Like the 9800 X3D, its multi-core performance is significantly improved over the 7950 X3D predecessor, with AMD claiming a 13% uplift in creator applications. Meanwhile, AMD claims it's 10% faster than the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K in creator applications and a whopping 20% faster in gaming than the 285K. No pricing was announced for these two new X3D desktop CPUs, and the only date given was again Q1 2025. Now, sometimes the most interesting things are the ones that are not announced, and in this case, no announcement for any non-X Ryzen 9000 series CPUs like a Ryzen 9600, 9700, or 9900 non-X. In the previous generation, AMD used the non-X versions of Ryzen 7000 series CPUs as a way to lower their way too high MSRPs to a more reasonable level. But Ryzen 9000 non-X 3D CPUs are reportedly not selling well at all. In fact, German retailer Mindfactory released sales data since the launch of Ryzen 9000 series, showing that even though it's been supply limited and it launched way later, the 9800 X3D has by itself outsold all the other Ryzen 9000 series CPUs combined. Now, this is just one retailer in Germany, but with most of the Ryzen 9000 non-X3D CPUs only about 5% faster than the Ryzen 7000 series predecessors, but charging a hefty price premium, it's not surprising that they just aren't selling. Over the holiday shopping season here in the US, Newegg was offering the Ryzen 7600X with a free SSD for $195, which if you take the $50 or so value of the SSD, that makes it a $145 CPU, which is crazy good. Meanwhile, the 9600X was stuck around $239 at its best pricing, and it's only 5% faster with an RTX 4090 at 1080p, probably a lot less so with a mid-range GPU at 1440p or 4K. So what are my thoughts on all this? I did, by the way, reach out to AMD with a whole list of questions around all of these launches. I just didn't hear anything back in time for the video. Maybe they're going to announce pricing on stage or availability on stage better than they have. I'm just going to assume that they're not going to. And I think let's start with the GPUs. I think in large measure, that's because AMD just does not want to go up against NVIDIA on the same day the 5090 is going to be announced. I think they know they're going to be a footnote here. If they fire all of their marketing stuff out there into a big hurricane of 5090 craziness, they're just going to get eaten alive. So I think they've probably done a smart PR thing, which is they've kind of put a bookmark out. Oh, by the way, we all know you're going crazy about the 5090, but by the way, we've got new GPUs coming. We're going to tell you more about them in a little bit. And here's a little bit more about FSR 4, which is going to compete with DLSS 4. I think that's all that they've really done here in terms of the GPUs. Now, let's pick apart their actual information that they have given us. I think based on the leaks and rumors that we had before, no real surprises here. The thing that we're waiting for is price. These are not high-end GPUs where it's like, oh, it's got to be the top of the chart. So I know some people, oh, I'm disappointed it's not 4080 super levels of performance. I mean, it's all dependent on the price, right? It depends on the price in terms of the how valuable these GPUs are going to be in the market. It's not like the 5090 or the 7900 XTX where it's like, is the 7900 XTX going to be faster than the 4090 or not? Is it going to be the top end GPU? Am I disappointed? I'm not only disappointed that we're not getting the information today, because I really want the information, but I understand they're basically like, hey, we are not going to sail into that storm. We're going to wait a week or two and then we'll let you know everything that's coming down the pike. So I get it. In terms of where I think these GPUs need to be priced, if I look at the 9070 and if it really is 7900 XT levels of performance, which you could buy for about $620 with free games, by the way, free games on Amazon Prime Day in October. It's not even like they just went to that price. They've been at that price for a while around these big sales. Then I think these GPUs have to come in $499, $449 for the 9070 XT. I think AMD somewhat has backed themselves into a corner. Look, you can only sell the performance you have. If you do in fact want to get aggressive, as they keep saying, we're going to get aggressive this time, we're going to get aggressive, because you can't just keep losing market share to NVIDIA. After a while, game developers are going to stop optimizing their games for AMD GPUs before they launch. They're just going to throw everything in NVIDIA. But that's kind of the threat right now if AMD does not claw back or at least maintain where they're at right now, as well as claw back some market share. So I really think they do need to get aggressive in that respect. $449 is where I would go with the 9070 XT. And I know their board partners, everyone will likely freak out. At this point, they have to invest some of the money that they're making, like on the server side, on the data center side, back into the GPU division. You can see how much money that NVIDIA is making in AI right now based on their GPUs. AMD kind of missed the boat on that one, and they don't want to continue to miss the boat. The Radeon division has been underinvested in previous years by AMD, but I think they just got to go really, really super aggressive here on these GPUs. And again, $499 would be a tough price point. I think $449, a lot more palatable for that 9070 XT, if that's the performance we're looking at. Then we got FSR 4. Not much to say here because there's not much to know. I think they're a little footnote about the 9070 and you have to have a 9070. They probably forgot that they have any information in one slide about the 9060. And so I would suspect, and I would be shocked if it didn't work on the 9060 series. I think they just kind of forgot. They're like, oh, these are the named GPUs we're putting in there. So those are the ones that we're going to call out in this footnote here. I get that. I did query AMD on that. Nothing back from them. So we're just left to guess. I would be shocked if it didn't work with other 9000 series GPUs. To me, FSR and DLSS, at least at 4K, are essentially indistinguishable while you're actually gaming. Yes, if you slow it down, blow it up to 300%, go frame by frame, DLSS is technically the better technology. But at some point you're like, well, how close is close enough, right? How close is close enough to the point where you don't really care? I think this is going to take it over the line in terms of, they're actually going to use a proprietary AI upscaler like NVIDIA does. Now, they probably get punched in the teeth by a lot of the tech media out there. Often holds NVIDIA and AMD and Intel to completely different standards, and even among different parts and everything as well. Sometimes AMD gets the benefit of the doubt versus Intel on CPUs. Most of the time, NVIDIA gets the benefit of the doubt on the GPU side. But to me, it's going to make it more parity. And I think that's really important for competition in the GPU marketplace, because right now, there's just so many outlets to say, oh, DLSS. So you have to buy NVIDIA. So yeah, just pay the extra $200 or $300. And I think as long as that's the case, that's not good for the consumer because there's no competition out there. And I'm hoping that this brings more competition or makes AMD GPUs more competitive, because Lord knows when we get those RTX 5000 series prices, we're going to need it. In terms of the X3D CPUs, I think we got exactly what we thought we would get. So it's a second generation V-cache underneath. That way the 9950 X3D is going to run just as fast in multi-threaded applications in terms of frequency as the 9950X. And in fact, we may find certain applications actually benefit from the 3D V-cache, so it may be faster in those applications than the 9950X, which would be great, Still going to have the core switching issues that the 7950 X3D and 7900 X3D had, because you're adding more cores on it. You have 2 core complex size. Only one of those is going to have access to the V-cache, and basically what it does is when you start gaming, it shuts off the other CCD, and it focuses everything on that primary CCD with access to the V-cache on it. And there's been the CCD switching issues out there. AMD has been working on that. I mean, it's been almost 2 years since they've been working on that. It's gotten a lot better. I should acknowledge it's gotten a lot better. It's not perfect yet though. And if you're a gamer, I still think you're going to want to pick up a 9800 X3D if you can ever get one of those things in stock. And then in terms of the non-X3D, Ryzen 9000 series CPUs, no price cuts, no non-X CPUs. I don't know what they're going to do with them. It's possible because AMD actually had a lot of other stuff in this that they wanted to get to in terms of AI and data center and laptop and mobile stuff that we don't really cover on this channel. So this was not the only stuff that they announced. They probably just skipped it. They could always send out a press release later at CES that they're going to cut prices on Ryzen 9000 series CPUs. I think that they were going to announce the 9600 non-X, 9700 non-X, et cetera. They would have done that in this press conference, in this announcement video. So the fact that they didn't, obviously they're not selling Ryzen 9000 series CPUs. It's kind of a sore point right now. Keep buying Ryzen 7000 series stuff except for the 9800 X3D. That's kind of what I've been recommending. If you got value out of the video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, and subscribe for more cool PC content like our 2025 PC parts to avoid. Don't buy these PC parts in 2025. You will absolutely destroy your PC's performance. Check it out. Stuff to avoid, and we'll catch you on the next one.